everyone, I'm Lauren, and today we're gonna do the old wrap-ups type things of 2020. Today I'm gonna be doing the worst / disappointing books of 2020. So I did read a lot of manga / comics, so really most of the novels that I read weren't really that bad for 2020, which feels kind of weird. So most of my 1 and 2 stars are comics, and I don't really want to talk about comics for this tier list. I just want to focus on the novels. So this is actually hard to come up with some, so I guess that's good. Although honestly, well, I came up with more good things than bad things for 2020, so I guess it's fine. Like, keep in mind that I don't think any of these are bad books. Like, none of these are super poorly written or anything like that. There are definitely some, I guess one that I think is, like, bad for me, but I wouldn't say that it's, like, poorly written necessarily. I think it has problems, but most of these are just kind of, they didn't work for me. So if you like them, I'm not saying these are trash and you have trash taste. No, these are fine. I just didn't like them. These aren't really in any order. I just kind of wrote them down, and yeah. The last one I'll talk about is definitely my least favorite one, though. So let's just start with the first one I have to talk about, and that is The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. This is the second book in the Wheel of Time series, and I really enjoyed the first one, and I heard that the first one was one of the weaker ones, and that they got better with the second one. And I disagree with that quite a bit. Like, sure, this is different. Like, the first one, I think a lot of people compare it to Lord of the Rings. Like, it's trying to be a Lord of the Rings-esque thing, and it is very similar, I feel. And this is not. But it's just a lot of, like, running all around, not really getting anything done, and a lot of whiny characters being kind of whiny. And some of my more favorite characters weren't in here as much. So I think when I first read this and reviewed it in a wrap-up, I mentioned it was kind of like, if you play Yankee sax in the background, that would be like at least half of this book, if not more than that. Like, people just running around, oh no, this thing got stolen, oh, run over there, oh no, this thing happened, run over there. It's just... and just, there's some weird parts with the bad guys writing edgy poetry, basically. And I was like, okay guys, that's weird. But... so I was pretty disappointed with this one, honestly. I hope the third one is better. I don't know if people like this one better than the third or the other way around, but this definitely put me off from reading the third one right away, but I am planning on reading it soon, so I hope it's better, because, ooh, big disappointment for me. The next one I have to talk about, it's one that I read very early on in 2020, and that is Beyond the Black Door by A.M. Strickland, I think. This one I randomly saw. It was a new release, I think, or a recent release. It's a fantasy setting, and it featured this character that can go through these doors in people's minds or something like that. And the thing that kind of interested me at first was the fact that the main character is an asexual character, and there's not too many of those especially in, like, more fantasy-esque, I feel like, or they don't show themselves very often, so they're hiding. And this one seemed to be less romance focused, because I don't like romance, really. But this just kind of ended up being the main character being kind of dumb, really. And it was kind of dull. But there was some romance, and it just was like, why do you like this guy? Main character, this guy is, I feel like he was abusive almost, if not, for sure. So it was pretty baffling in that regard, and it was just okay. Other than that, there wasn't anything special about it. There weren't a whole lot of things that were super bad. It was more just okay. I did like how they tried to have a universe that was more open to all sorts of sexualities and gender preferences and all that stuff. But the rest of it didn't work for me. The next book will actually set a book, so I don't really want to make a separate entry for each of these. And that is all of the Roald Dahl books I read in 2020. There were some that I just really didn't like, and some that were just okay. But either way, none of these I liked particularly that much. There were some that I rated higher than others, but upon thinking about it later, I felt like lowering it. So none of these I would really want to reread now that I remember what goes on, because I have read a lot of these as a kid, and they don't work. These ones don't work for me anymore. I am planning on reading other Roald Dahl books because I have them, so I might as well read them, and they're very short. So maybe there'll be one that works. I'm expecting Matilda might work for me. They're just kind of weird and dumb, almost. Maybe that's not the right word, but they just weren't interesting. Just kind of silly. Too silly? I don't know. But anyways, the ones that I read in 2020 were Fantastic Mr. Fox, Billy and the Minpins, The Twits, SEO Trot, The Giraffe and the Pelly and Me, The Magic Finger, James and the Giant Peach, The BFG, and The Witches. So yeah, none of those I was particularly enthused about. Very disappointing. Again, I wouldn't call any of them bad, necessarily. Like, maybe some of them I'm like, is this really a good children's book or not? Like, SEO Trot is one that I'm, terrible? No. Just, I didn't like them, and I was pretty disappointed by them. And then the last book is one that I really hated. This is the only book that I hated that is on this list that I finished. Probably some DNFs I read in 2020 would also go on here, but I didn't keep track of them in 2020. I'm probably going to do that in 2021. But for this, these are all ones that I actually finished. And yeah, this one is easily the worst one that I read. And it's a reread too. I don't tend to like to talk about rereads for these best worst things, but yes, this one is a reread and I really hated it. Maybe more than when I first read it. And that is Lord of the Flies by William Golding. So this is a classic, so a lot of people know what it's about. Kids get stranded in an island and they have to survive, and things don't go very well. The thing I don't like about this is that I feel like the author was trying to use this as an example on how humanity is terrible, essentially. The problem is that I feel like the characters were just basically doing things to move his agenda, kind of. They didn't feel like real characters. Like, walking, talking symbols is what I called them. And I still feel that pretty strongly. It was just really boring a lot of the time too. It dragged a lot. The last chapter or so had a bit more going for it, but it was still just like, man, these don't feel like real characters. How can you use this as an example on humanity is terrible when they don't feel like characters? So it didn't work very well for me. I read this in school and I hated it. So, yeah, I read it for Murphy's read along, or buddy reads or whatever, and I was curious if I would hate it just as much or whatever, and yeah, yep, still hate it, don't like it. Anyway, those were all the worst and most disappointing books I read in 2020. Let me know in the comments below if you read any of these, your thoughts on them. Like, if you disagree or agree, that's fine, let me know. And also let me know if you read any particularly disappointing or bad books in 2020 and what those were. I'd be curious to hear about that. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in another video. Bye!